Hello, my name is Shalina. Welcome to Quilt in Color. Today I'm going to be working on my Dear Jane quilt. I'm going to see how much progress I can make in 15 minutes. Okay, so as we usually do, the first thing we do is we look in the box and see what we have. And here we have the book, Dear Jane by Brenda Papadakis. And the way this book is designed is that there's a picture of the block and then a little draft of the pattern so that you can make your own. There's no directions on actually how to make it. What there are is some letters that Brenda wrote to Jane, who was a person who made this quilt during Civil War times. Let me find, here it is, okay, in 1868. And she counted the number of pieces, 5,602, by Jane Stickle. So today I've decided that I want to work on this. So this one I'm going to work on, and I figured out a way to make this one without paper piecing it. So this is the one I'm going to be working on, is a bread basket. Let me show you the picture of the actual block a little bit closer. This is E7 bread basket. Okay. See what else is in the box? There's blocks that have already been finished, and then there's some fabric that I can use to make more blocks. Okay, and let's see. Let's look at all of these. Okay, so here's the fabric. I'm thinking I'm going to need a small print so things don't get lost inside because all the pieces are pretty small. So I guess this one maybe has got the smallest print. Maybe this one will be the one I use. And now let's look at the blocks. These are not in any order. I do have the name of the block, the number of the block, so that I'll have it, so I'll know which one it is, so I can find it quicker, I guess, in the scheme of things if I'm looking for it. One thing that I did not notice from the book, from the original picture, one thing I did not notice when I was looking at this originally, when I started on this quilt, is the fact that there's a trip around the world setting with the colors. So there's a green, there's the yellows, and then the reds go this way. And I did not notice that when I started, so my quilt does not do that. It's possible, you can see it with the pinks mostly. So one thing that I might do is do the trip around the world setting, but just move the blocks into a different direction. Or the other choice is to put them in randomly. And I guess I'll just decide that when I get to it. But it's going to be probably a while before I get to that decision. Okay, so here's one block. I'll just go ahead and go through these. Some of these are not the same size because I can add sashing to make them the size that it needs to be. And some of them are neater than others are. And I did think about redoing this block, or at least the applique on this block. But I decided to wait until the end to see how much it annoys me. Chances are it's not going to annoy me very much, considering the number of blocks. People are not going to look that carefully at each particular block. There's this one that just needs to be trimmed. It helps to just make them big and then trim them down. I use fall fabrics in my quilt. I was not trying to make a reproduction of the quilt, except for the blocks. You'll recognize this one from the album quilt, where I was trying to miter the corners. No mitered corners in this quilt, at least not on that block. Okay, next stack. I need to trim the triangles off of this one. Some of these blocks were really fun to make, and it felt like I could just keep making more and more of them to make a whole quilt out of them instead of just one block for this quilt. And some of them made me think, oh, what if I do this extra thing to riff on this block? So I think if you just had this one book, either this one book or any other sampler block quilt, chances are you could just use that one book for the rest of your life and still have enough ideas for your whole life. But it's more fun to have more choices. Okay, those are all the blocks. The first thing that I do when I'm working on this quilt, I look up my spreadsheet to see what blocks have already been made. So you can see here that the last time that I made a block was in 2011. It's been a minute since I worked on it. And then I can just go down this list to see which blocks I haven't made, and then I can choose which one I want to do. And today I've chosen E7 from my book. So I'm looking at E7, and I have not made this block yet. So I'm going to start that today. The second thing that I do when I'm working on this quilt is pull up this website, thatquilt.blogspot.com. This quilter has given us directions on how she made the blocks on this quilt. And so I go to this website, and here the block tutorials, it tells you where the work is. So you can just pull up E7 here, which is the block I want to work on. And you can see that this block is made completely differently from what I was thinking. So when I was looking at the original block, I was thinking that I would work from the center out and make a square and a square block. And then I would add flying geese with extra fabric and then just cut them bigger that way. And then like little snowball blocks in the corners. And so I'd work my way out from the inside. But the way this quilt is made, it looks like it's made with 4 snowball blocks like this. And I had not really thought of it that way. So I'm glad that I came to this website so I could look at it this way. And because I'm looking at it this way, I think that I should be able to do this without paper piecing, because I can easily just make a snowball block and then add sashing in between to finish it off. Okay, so now I'm more confident about this quilt, and I can go ahead and start working on it. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing you want to do is to measure the block so that you know how big to cut the pieces. I recommend when you're working through a book like this that you would start with the easiest blocks and work your way up. This quilt is not for beginners. Not sure if it's even up to my skill level, and I'm definitely not an expert. I really like the idea of making 4 similar blocks instead of the original way I was thinking about it, by making the center and all these other blocks. So hopefully this will work well for me. The only difference is that my way would have had a similar square in the center instead of having pieces now that I will have, although I could applicate it like they did in the blog. So what I'm doing is I'm just measuring right now. So this quilt square starts here. So it looks like it's 1 3/4 is where the size of the block, 1 3/4 inches. So I would add 1/2 inch for the seam allowance. Adding the seam allowance will put me at 2 1/4. And actually I don't need that much because of the sashing that's going to be added. So I think 2 1/4 will be plenty for me to work on for this quilt. So the square I'm going to cut at 2 1/4 colored fabric. And then the triangle that's going to be used for the cornerstones for my snowball block is what, 3/8 of an inch. I think I could just go ahead and cut a whole inch and then just have extra at the end. So I'll just cut a 1 inch square. I know I definitely don't need a whole inch. But I can just make it improv. So I need 4 of the dark ones and 4 for each of the blocks for the muslin. Okay, so let's get this started. This is a quilt shop fabric. The book out of the way. Straighten out the edge. I need 4 pieces, but it'll be fine. I need 2 1/4. 1 2 1/4, so it'll be right here. One 2 1/4. Yep. Okay. A lot of layers on this 5/4. I didn't unfold it. Okay. Cut out the selvage here. Two. I'm just going to cut, I'm going to save this for scrap and cut the unfolded part since I didn't press the fabric first. And that way I don't have folds in the fabric to deal with. Okay, so now I have 4 pieces of fabric that I can use to work on. And I need 1 inch squares for the corners. And this is the muslin that I used originally. And I'm going to continue using it until I'm finished. And maybe this is another reason why I was kind of hesitant to keep going on this quilt, because the muslin is not as good a quality as it could be. And I did buy some more muslin, but like a higher quality one. But I'm going to go ahead and make this quilt this way. Okay, so I need, I think I decided 1-inch squares. And I cut another one just for the sashing. Okay. Lining these up so I can cut them 4 at a time. Start on this side and clear up the edge. Turn them around gently. Two, three, four. Okay, perfect. Now I need to sew triangle snowballs in each of the corners. So what I'm going to do is to just sew diagonally from corner to corner this way. And then I can just turn these in this direction. And I compare that to the size of the fabric here. I'm comparing it to the block here, and you can see that it's going to be a little bit big, but it'll be really close. Because this is about 1/4 inch, so I think it'll work out just fine. Okay, my timer is up. I'm going to go ahead and finish piecing these other triangles. In my 15 minutes to quilt today, I was able to put the cornerstones on all 4 of the blocks that we're looking at. It's actually more progress than I thought I would make, although some of them do need some extra work to make them straighter. Normally I would mark these lines. Blocks this small take a lot of work and patience because any small mistake that you make on this will be amplified. When the blocks are this small, you have to worry about how much room the thread takes up. So each little tiny fraction of an inch, even 1/16 of an inch, makes a big difference on this block, on most of the blocks in this quilt. This video is one of a series where I work on each of my works in progress. I just see how much work I can get done 15 minutes at a time. I hope that you got a chance to sew along with me. If you did, just let me know in the comments what you worked on and how much you got done in your 15 minutes, and I'll give you an entry in the drawing. I'm going to post the winners in a video on January 1st. Thank you for watching. I appreciate all of your support, and we'll see you again tomorrow.